Hi, I'm Andrew Mercado. This is my 𝐶𝐽𝐵 I'm going to take you on a driving tour of Newcastle and we'll go look at some of my favourite beaches. This is Carrington, which is quite near to the port of Newcastle. But I think it's a beautiful, beautiful suburb with some really lovely big wide streets and
lovely houses.
Beautiful houses over here. Like just a really, really pretty area.
And you were saying this is under sea level?
Well, yeah, they talk about the fact that this might not go too well if we get a bit of sea level change. But I do note that when Newcastle was under siege, when the Pasha Bulka ran aground nearby, that it was still bone dry here, so maybe it may not happen. But see, look over there at that building on the right, be one of the old style boarding houses that would have been here back in the day. 1, 2, 3 stories, the Carrington Club Hotel that I think would have had, because all around here was industry. Just over there are the train lines with the coal. And
how far are we from where the old BHP steelworks were?
Well, literally I'd say about 1 kilometre. It would have been over there to the left. And you still see there's still a lot of the old train tracks are here, and there still is a lot of coal coming down from the mines around Muswellbrook and Singleton. Oh, we're not going to be able to get through there.
Right.
I'm going to U-turn it, and
that looks like the old steelworks back there, is it?
Yeah, it's not quite the steelworks, but yeah, it's there's still a bit of grain and stuff that seems to be getting moved in and around here.
Sure.
But just look at these beautiful wide streets and these lovely streetscapes here. And then you just get to the edge of Carrington up ahead here, and yeah, we're very much back into an industrial groove here. Stuff was knocked down after the earthquake in 1989.
Yeah.
A lot of buildings were deemed structurally unsound, but then they started knocking down a lot of stuff, and that's when the locals kind of put their foot down and started protesting and said, no, come on, you're not going to knock down Customs House. That building is historic, that should be restored. So some stuff was lost in the earthquake, but then they decided, hey, we've got to save and preserve some more of it.
So are we still in Carrington now?
We're still very much in Carrington.
And I can see up ahead there's looks like maybe part of the old steelworks?
No, that would be that's something I think it's a grain terminal. I think that's very much on the riverfront.
Oh, is that so?
And that some of that would still be working today.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of this is still a working port. Some of it's not as active as it used to be.
So what are these in front of us? Are they grain silos?
Yeah, they look like some sort of silos to me. And there's still a lot of activity, but there was a lot more activity here when BHP had thousands and thousands of workers as part of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the
very old
pump station.
Engine house.
Yeah.
Port of Newcastle.
Yep. See, that's still a working port. There's still stuff going on in there. And there's still trains going along this line with freight.
Oh yeah.
That's because it's basically it's either taking stuff to go on ships, or it's picking up stuff from the ship and sending it somewhere else.
So a lot of this would be coal being shipped.
It's a lot of coal
shipped out to China and Japan and places like that.
Yeah, that coal is moving 24/7. If you were to stand on the side of the railway line, you'd be shocked at how constant it is. Back and forth, coal.
So where are we now?
So now we're at the back of Carrington, where I would describe this as semi-industrial.
Yep.
Like 𝐼 Distilling Company over there, that's a new thing. That's gin. They brew gin there,
Yep.
and they were involved in Newcastle Pride. They had gin tasting and gin mixing there, and they've got a giant, you know, dance floor there. They have folk bands.
There's another over
yeah.
there.
So there's a few new companies that have moved into disused warehouses.
Sure.
Some of these warehouses are used as rehearsal spaces for bands who come up here from Sydney.
Yep.
I said, oh, why do you love coming here? Is it because it's quiet? You don't have to worry about neighbours complaining about the noise. And they said, no, it's even better than that. People can park their cars all day for free here.
Yeah.
And there aren't many places in Sydney where you can do that.
No. And of course the land is much cheaper to rent here.
Yeah.
So where are we now?
We're still in the tree-lined streets of Carrington. It sort of reminds me a bit, sometimes I get the feeling that it's a bit like there's a New Orleans vibe with the houses, with the verandas looking down into the street. I'm sure there's a fascinating history to Carrington, and I'm sure back in the day when there were a lot of sailors in port and, you know, a lot of men, a lot of single men around here, I'm sure there were brothels on every street corner back in the day. I wish that someone would record that history.
What's the population of Newcastle now? Is it still about 600,000?
I couldn't tell you. I think it would be more than that.
Yeah?
I mean, Newcastle is the biggest city in Australia that isn't a capital city.
Okay. And it's bigger than Canberra?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing that as a visual guide. But having been to Canberra and driving around, I think Newcastle's bigger.
Cool.
Old cinema, that one. So this is the new honeysuckle development. So when they ripped up the train line in Sydney and replaced it with light rail, it was all about getting more access to the riverfront, which back in the day was just sort of all industrial. And now that Newcastle is less industrial, it's all about having, you know, living on the river now. And when we drive up through it, one of the best things about it, I think, is that they've retained the old buildings and repurposed them, which I think is a great thing to do.
Yeah. So what we're looking at now looks like fairly new.
All of this is new.
Yeah.
All of this is new. New office space, new accommodation.
What was the name of this area again?
Honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle. Right?
Yep. The building right in front of us, the black glass building, is a part of the University of Newcastle.
Okay.
That's a incredible facility. They've got a TV studio in there that's first class for students studying that. So it's all one kind of level here, as you see too.
Sure.
I mean, there is some high-rise accommodations. The buildings are getting higher, but this precinct is all pretty much the same building height.
Is there much student accommodation around here?
Yeah, there is. See, there's part of the university through there, that funny building on the legs.
Okay.
That's another part of the university.
Okay.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of students.
Overseas students?
Yes, and a lot of kids from Sydney
Okay.
come to Newcastle to study.
Yeah.
And a lot of them end up staying. What
does Newcastle excel at in their university?
I don't know what subjects they excel at, but I do know that it's always, when I lived here in the 1980s, everyone was always Novocastrians were proud of the fact that they had great schools and great universities. So yes, they were an industrial town, but the education facilities were fantastic. This is the Newcastle Museum, in which they've taken on old buildings that were previously here, maybe wool stores, and repurposed them to move the Newcastle Museum into them. And they've kept all the old train stations and used them, which I think is a great way to reuse things.
Because they closed down the old Newcastle train station and they made a new interchange.
Correct, and they've run a light rail through the city instead of a train.
Which not everybody was happy about.
No, it cost a fortune. And nobody really uses it, but, you know, did it open up the riverfront? Yeah, got to admit it did. So, ultimately, it was the right thing to do.
So we're still running parallel to the southern bank of the Hunter River here.
Yeah. But it really just kind of opens up here, because now we can see the river.
Okay.
We're coming in close to the Hunter River.
To our left.
Yep.
Okay.
There's the ferry going across to Stockton on the other side there.
So Stockton is like a suburban...
Yeah. And see, the fact that you've got all this parkland now, and people ride bikes and can walk along here and get seafood from the restaurant and have fish and chips under the trees. This is being used a lot more now than when I lived here in the 80s. This was kind of a bit rough and dirty and industrial. But if you look up straight ahead here, you'll see there's a building here. This used to be an old signal box for the trains.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've turned it into a restaurant called Signal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a very fancy restaurant.
Yeah.
But they've just beautifully repurposed that as a classy restaurant. And I love that they've done that. And they've kept the history of the rail there. If you look up ahead here, there's the old Newcastle railway station, which has now been branded the station.
Yeah.
They've still kept the seating and the awnings of that, and all of that station now has little designer shops in there, funny little quirky shops. They can use this for markets, food markets.
What about the clock tower?
The clock tower's still been retained there too. That's just opposite Customs House.
Is that part of the railway station? Or?
Yes. No, that's Customs House, the clock.
Okay.
That was in danger of being knocked down after the earthquake. Oh, now look at this. We can't drive up here because they've just started closing it off for the supercars.
Oh.
How annoying. Our beautiful ocean...
So this is Hunter Street up here, isn't it?
This is Hunter Street now. All right, I'm clearly...
Made very famous by Bob Hudson in his song in 1975.
So there's a nice shot of the station there now. If you look through that, you can see that there it all is, still the way it was. They've just filled in the railway tracks.
Big truck going past.
And then the light rail goes down Hunter Street now.
And we're going up the hill here. Is this Cook's Hill or Ties?
No, we're about to get to Cook's Hill, Ties Hill. I can't drive along the way I was planning to, because they've just started shutting down the roads to get ready for the supercars.
Is this kind of like a summer nats like in Canberra?
Yeah, racing cars.
Okay, right, yeah. Okay.
So, of course, it looks spectacular on TV to see a racetrack that goes along the ocean's edge. Just going to ruin our drive a bit.
I can see that a lot of the old housing has been replaced by some of these new buildings.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes if there's a particularly ugly building that looks like it was built in the 90s, it's because they knocked something down that was damaged in the earthquake.
Yes.
And put something hideous in its place. But of course, now we are getting you're actually seeing stuff that's more recent build.
Yeah. So to our left here is a park And the sea.
There's the ocean, and here's so this was.
Is this Ty's Hill or Cook?
No, this is still Newcastle up here.
Yeah.
So this would have been where the well-to-do lived.
Yeah.
All of those houses up there would have had views of the harbour, water views, and I'll drive up a street here now, which is just quite magnificent. This, I think, has always been back in the day. The place to be.
Surfies.
Yep. Newcastle has a real surf culture to it, and it's a relaxed. I always think that surf cultures makes the place a bit more chill and relaxed.
Yeah.
I love being around surfies. They have a surf. As long as they get to ride a few waves every day, they're happy. Happy chappies, and that kind of spreads through a town. But if you look at these houses on the right here, I mean, some of these houses as we get a bit further up are quite magnificent.
They would be worth quite a bit of money too.
Oh yeah, they'd be worth a squillion now. But back in the day, this would have been, I guess, where the harbour master lived. And I mean, look at them, these incredible huge houses. You could see like a governor or
beautiful
someone living there back in the day.
Beautiful old house. So over the ridge here would be the sea, I expect.
Oh yeah. There it is. I'll actually pull up now at a bit of a lookout.
Okay.
So this is a fairly new thing that they built. They've built a walkway now so that people can walk along the cliff top and see the ocean views, because it's a lovely high vantage point. Of course, if you were here during winter months, you would see a lot of whales going past. This would be a great place to do a bit of whale spotting. But yeah, it's a really spectacular. There aren't that many. Normally there are tons of ships out there, like big cargo ships waiting to come into the port, and you can see a couple just out to sea there now.
Yes, I can.
There they are, moored off the banks, moored off the, they'd be getting ready to pick up some coal.
I suppose there's not that much coal being exported to China at the moment.
Well, there's probably less, but it's being exported to somewhere. They never stop coming and going.
Where's Merriweather?
Well, Merriweather's just literally down there, so that's where we're going to drive. That'll be where we'll end up.
Okay.
And in fact, if we walk around here a bit, we might look back on Newcastle City too.
Yeah.
So that's the bridge to get to Stockton. If you were driving around the long way, that's how you would get to Stockton, where we saw the ferry going to before.
Okay.
This area is called the Hill for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Where you're sort of looking down onto Cook's Hill and looking out across suburban Newcastle. You can see the CBD down there, the Hunter River, the port down there. And BHP used to be there, kind of belching smoke out into the air all the time, but it's all gone now.
Why did they close it down?
Gee, I don't think I know the exact reason why they chose to close it down, but I think that it was a real kick in the guts for Newcastle to have an earthquake in the late 880s and then lose your major employment hub in the 90s. I think it took a while for the town to find its feet again after that, but I think it's well and truly recovered now and just getting bigger and better.
And of course, as we were discussing earlier, Newcastle has a fantastic arts and music scene.
Yeah, they really do.
Which is really good because there's a lot of, I guess, cheap rent.
Yeah, as we talk, there's a lot of uni students here. It's a young town. I mean, a lot of Newcastle people, like any people in what they would consider a small town, can't wait to leave, but a lot of them come back and then realise hey, life in the backyard is better than the big old crowded city. Newcastle's not crowded, it's not stressful, there's not a lot of traffic, you can drive to the beach on a sunny day and still get a park. There's a whole bunch of things you can do here easily that are a lot more difficult to do in Sydney.
It's a bit like Wollongong in that respect.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, now you should turn it on, because now we get to see the kind of stretch of coastline. As we come out from this brush, we'll see Bar Beach, Dixon Park, and then on to Merewether.
Where did the Pasha Bulka?
It was back there at Nobby's Beach, which we can't get to because it's closed off for the supercar construction.
Okay, right. And that was run aground for quite some time, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was pretty bad there for a while, but they
fantastic surf today.
It is amazing surf today. I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
The surfboard riders will be loving this.
Don't see many out there, but certainly the surf looks really good.
No, they're there. They're there. We'll go down to where they congregate. Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful day. One day I was here and I saw the newsreader from NBN News changing out of his wetsuit into his thing to go back and read the 6 o'clock news, and it was like 5:30, and I was like, that's so cool. You've left work, raced down to have a surf, and now you're going to go back and give us the weather report. I just loved it.
Weatherman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this would be normally where you'd see a lot of people getting out of their cars with surfboards, but I don't know, maybe it's too rough. I don't see anybody here. Oh, here's someone up here. They're getting ready to go for a surf. Maybe it's a bit early for them. 4 o'clock, nobody's finished work. So this is Merewether Pool, an ocean pool. Great place to swim laps. You don't have to swim in chlorine, it's all salt water.
Is it mostly kids that come here, or?
No, a lot of lap swimmers. A lot of people come here to swim laps. If you see up there at that end of the pool, they're swimming back and forth doing laps.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of kids and families in this shallow pool in front, but the one at the back is used for swimming and training.
Yeah, there's a couple of pools like this in Coogee and Bondi.
Yeah.
But this is one of the bigger ones, certainly that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty big. And there's another one of these at Newcastle Beach, but again, that's shut off because of supercars, and it's actually being renovated and closed at the moment.
What's your dog's name?
That's Jazz. Rescue Kelpie.
How often do you take her out for walks?
Oh, twice a day. Every morning, every afternoon.
Where do you like to take her for walks?
She likes to go to the beach and the river.
Yeah?
Won't go in the water, but I like her being in sand.
Yeah. What does she like about the river?
Chasing the ball. You love a ball, don't you? Yeah.
Okay, let's get going.
So coming down here now from Merewether Heights down to Merewether Beach, and then you can look up to where we were when we were at the top of the lookout there, at the top of that cliff.
Okay. What's the name of that cliff there?
It's 𝐶𝐲𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵 Lookout.
Okay. As in Sharon 𝐶𝐲𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵.
Correct, that's how I remember it.
So this is the south end of Merewether Beach.
Yeah.
me a little bit about this beach here.
So Merriweather Beach, Dixon Park, Cooks Hill Surf Life Saving Club up there.
The surf is fabulous today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. And the beach seems to have returned. A lot of this beach got washed away during some of the winter storms, but it seems like it's coming back.
See a lot of people swimming between the flags there. And lifeguard on duty.
Yep.
So this is your regular beach here, is it?
Yeah, I would come down here a lot.
How often?
Well, I come here a lot at the moment because the Newcastle baths are shut. The truth is that if the Newcastle baths are open, I would spend a lot more time there than I would down at this end of the beach. I'm down here now because the other one's closed at the moment.
Okay.
I'd sort of, like, you know, if you were going to call this area, I would call this the place where, you know, the beautiful people are on the weekend.
Yep.
This is a place to come and sort of do the boardwalk and
Like
be in
Bondi.
your exercise gear. Yeah, very much like Bondi. But a nice vibe to it.
Yeah.
Not so clicky.
Yeah. Well, this is the 𝐶𝐬𝐬 lookout
from the other side.
From the south side, yeah. I love these Norfolk Island pines here, they're beautiful.
Yeah. I've always loved a wide avenue.
We don't have enough of these Norfolk Island pines in Sydney, unfortunately.
No, it's very much a beach thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Which part of Newcastle are we in now? Is this?
We're actually travelling into Cooks Hill now.
Okay. Is there anything special about Cooks Hill?
Well, I think a lot of university students have always lived in Cooks Hill in share houses.
Sure.
They love an inner city suburb.
Sure. So this is Beaumont Street in Hamilton.
Yep.
Can you tell me the story?
Well, this was the epicentre of the Newcastle earthquake in 1989. 28th of December, around 10:27 a.m. in the morning. There was a sudden jolt.
It was about 6 on the Richter scale, wasn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of shop awnings in this street fell down onto people walking in the street, and people were killed here.
Really?
And then a lot of buildings in this street were deemed uninhabitable and got pulled down.
But there seems to be a lot of old buildings here still.
Well, some survived, some got saved, and some of them, like this hotel on the corner,
Yeah.
it was completely demolished and rebuilt, the Kent Hotel.
Okay. In the old style.
It's built it the way it was, yes.
Yeah. Okay. But this is like the sort of trendy cafe sort of area of Newcastle now, isn't it?
Well, it actually, in a way, maybe revitalised the area. I know that when I lived here in the 80s, I never came here at all, but now this is very much a dining street with restaurants of every nationality that you can think of. Thai, Korean, Ethiopian, Chinese, Italian, Greek, Indian, Irish pub. Every food you want to eat is in Beaumont Street, Hamilton now.
And you said in the past it was a bit of, I guess, like a sort of a King's Cross.
Well, I don't think it was King's Cross, but I think it was very much a kind of an old school. I think there was a coffee culture here with Italian and Greek
You were saying there were sex workers up the street here.
There were sex workers more down the other end of this street.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of kind of junkies around this end of the street back in the day.
Sure.
This was a bit rough.
Okay. But now it's totally changed.
Totally gentrified.
Are these hotels here famous for anything?
Well, this hotel, the Hamilton Station Hotel, was once the roughest pub in New South Wales.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did to move away from its violent past was introduce a gender-neutral toilet.
Oh, yeah.
And that sent a message, and now that's a very gay-friendly pub.
Oh, yeah.
Full of uni students, live music, real cross-section of people. One summer I was there and there was a tradie with long surfy hair standing next to me, and as he moved away from the bar I realised he was wearing a denim skirt. So I love that.
Where was the Star Hotel, the one with the Cold Chisel sang about?
Yeah, back there in Hunter Street that we kind of avoided on our tour today.
They had riots there once.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So where is this Maitland Road here?
This is Maitland Road. So there was a gay pub here in Newcastle for a long time, but there isn't a gay pub at all in Newcastle anymore.
Okay.
And I can't even find that there's a regular drag night, and I tell you what, someone needs to start that up.
Start doing something.
Yeah, there's a huge audience for drag now with RuPaul's Drag Race, and it's mostly straight girls.
So Maitland's 30 k's away.
Yep.
Is there anything special in Maitland?
Beautiful old historic buildings there, yeah.
So where was this old gay pub?
Over here on the right. The Newcastle Hotel was a very famous gay bar back in the day.
Oh, I see, yes.
Now it's very much for young kids who want to eat fried chicken.
Right.
And all of these Moreton Bay fig trees, the ladies of the night would stand there and hustle their wares. I have to get petrol here.
Okay.